We've got some
Hey, I'm Luis.
And I'm Luis.
And you're listening to the Content is Profit podcast.
We spent the last 4 years learning the strategies and techniques from some of the top marketers in the world on how to create content that turns into profit.
If you'd like to learn more on how to turn your content into profit, go to contentisprofit.com.
That's right, guys. Today, an awesome topic that I know you are going to love: how to create a movement. I know I am super interested in this.
Oh, me too. I want to see the behind the scenes. I want to see all the little details. What's happening behind the creation of the movement. Before we get started, guys, please don't forget, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Hit it, smash it, because you want to know when these episodes drop on your phone. And also, please don't forget to follow us on social media at BizBrosco on Facebook and Instagram.
That's right, guys. And if you find this episode impactful, which I am sure you will, don't forget to share it and give us a 5-star review.
Awesome. So the last event we went to was Podfest. We were adventuring into uncharted waters. This was not our typical ClickFunnels audience ready to hit you with a quick jab full of offers. This is where we met today's guest along with her awesome gang of podcasters.
Let me tell you, the highlight of that event was the karaoke duet we did with today's guest. We might have to share that performance later, but don't be fooled. Although karaoke skills are a must to carve a place for yourself in the podcasting community, she has achieved some incredible feats.
Today's guest superpower is her ability to provide visibility. She is the host of the podcast Empowerment and All That. But one of her most impressive achievements is the creation of the Latina Podcasters Network. We are so excited to know more about that.
That is right. Please welcome host of the Empowerment and All That podcast, founder of the Latina Podcasters Network, but most importantly, karaoke queen, Miss Rita Bautista!
You guys. Oh my God. Thank you guys so much for having me here.
We are so pumped up.
Welcome to the show, Rita. We are extremely excited that you were able to join. It was so hard to get you to come. Just saying.
Because she's so important. She's in the middle of her movement, right? So we're like, Rita, come on. We need you in the podcast.
We need you on the show. And we finally got it. So, guys, if you are tuning in live or if you're listening, please stay and pay attention because I can't wait.
And comment #thank you, Rita.
Thank you, Rita.
Aww.
Yes.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much for having me here today. And that intro, that should be everybody's intro. Both of you guys just like super amped up, talking about all these crazy events. And I'm really curious to see this video. So
yeah, we need to share it. We have a few clips from that night. That was awesome, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, it's literally, guys, it's Fonzie and Rita, honestly. Like, I was the one filming. So
I crushed it, Rita. Fist bump.
I made him shine. That's all. So Rita, why don't you share a little bit of, your story? Like, how did everything started? Who are you? Like, why this movement?
Sure. So back in May of last year of 2019, I started the podcast Empowerment and All That, which I set out to empower the world. And as everybody knows, when you first start out a podcast, you have to have some sort of a topic. And I was just like, oh, yeah, I'm just empowering everybody. Like, I'm just going to talk about everything and anybody and everyone's going to love it. And I'm going to be Joe Rogan overnight. And as every podcaster out there who's listening understands that when you first start, that energy is behind you. And then you hit that moment where you're like, oh, my goodness, nobody's listening. And so my thing was like, okay, I've learned to master marketing and networking in general, just in any career that I've ever had. And I knew I was like, okay, well, I'm going to have to figure out what groups are out there so I can start getting to know other people. And then I started to notice that it was really difficult to find any Latinas that were podcasting in general, because that was really kind of what I was trying to find, was like that sisterhood camaraderie in this industry, and didn't find it. So October 4th of 2019 was the day that I started the Latina Podcasters Facebook private group. And within like weeks, we were at hundreds. And so I started to notice that obviously there was need for support and representation and, discoverability. So I had also launched the Instagram, and I started highlighting podcasters every single day. And obviously, as you know, if you do this every single day, it can burn you out really fast, even if it's just like social media. And so I got from the advice that I'd gotten from my previous co-founder, who is actually off doing her awesome work in her hypnosis stuff now. She told me, you know what, Rita, you're going to have to figure out a plan, because if you keep going at this one day, every single day, you're going to burn out fast. And so, we went to Podfest, and at Podfest, after talking to everybody, they were like, this isn't a group, this is a network, and what you're doing has a lot of potential and there's a lot of momentum. And then quarantine hit, and I was like, you know what? No better time than any to launch a podcast network. And here we are in June. I'm happy to state that we have our contract signed from all of our podcasters. We're going to launch the network with 14 people. Yes. And we do have a podcast directory too, which was another part of the brainchild to start to get people together and be able to find these podcasts. We started a directory, and on the directory, there's 48 podcasts, all created by Latinas, produced by Latinas, hosted by Latinas, and, all different genres, Afro-Latinas, everything.
Amazing.
So we're very inclusive in that space.
If we put Fonzie on a wig, can he be part of the network?
Yes. You know what? If you feel as though you connect to your feminine energy, and that's kind of what I'm going to leave it at, as long as you connect to a Latin American country, however you find it, you can be on our podcast directory.
That's awesome. That is awesome. I'm going to tell you, I will think about it.
All right.
You're gonna have to shave too, because that beard,
I love what you're doing. Bringing these people together, and just like the name of your podcast, empowering them to share their message is so important, and especially in the times that we're living right now, So I feel like so many people have so much to say. Of course, there's people that have negative things to say, but then there's some people that are ready to empower others, and let their best self show. And I think you are that person right there who's kind of like guiding all these people in the right direction. And I absolutely love it. And you mentioned something in your story that I found very interesting, which is, we all expect to be like Joe Rogan and have overnight success. And for those that have been listening to the Content is Profit show, you guys know how I hate immediate gratification. It's like my biggest enemy right now.
Big time.
And I must confess, I didn't know much about immediate gratification, and then I started digging into it, and I'm like, number one enemy now, right? And the worst thing is that it happens to everybody, especially when we go into the entrepreneurship, podcasting, any field that pretty much requires your own ability to dictate your own success.
I will call it a dream crusher, because a lot of people get hung up on that. It's like they don't have that immediate success, and that's it. They quit. That's it. I stop.
Yeah, and it is, it takes away some of your motivation, again, which is a whole different topic for another day. But I love how you were like, you know what, like I was grinding, I was hitting it hard, and you hit burnout as well, right? And that is super, super important. And I want to ask, what have you done, to switch it up? What can you tell people in regards to that aspect, hey, you're not going to achieve it overnight success, because those are like 0.0000001%.
Right.
And what can you do to avoid that burnout?
Well, I think the first thing is all about mindset. Like I'm a huge mindset person, and I think that first thing you have to do is look at it in the long haul. Like podcasting isn't necessarily supposed to be just this thing that's going to turn into an overnight success unless you already have a built-in audience. So what I always tell people is, if you're going to start podcasting, let's look at what your audience is already telling you, whether you're starting off something that is connected to your personal brand, or if it's something that's connected to your business. Who's already following you? What are things that they are interested in? Because if you connect to that audience that you already have available to you, they're going to be more willing to share and talk about, what it is that you're creating, right? So like in your case, it's content. So, this is your audience that you're already building up. And these people already know what they're looking for when they're connecting to you.
Yeah.
There are other people like myself who just started a journey and then the journey kind of let itself go. And now it's really about, making sure that I'm scheduling things in advance, creating a calendar, using things like Calendly to schedule your calendars beforehand with your podcast guests and stuff like that to help you get ahead of everything. That's obviously like one of the most important things in general, because, you can also burn out by overly being accessible to everybody. So I think that that's also a number one thing. Like I'm naturally one of those people that just wants to help everybody. And I realize now that every time I say yes to something, I probably should be saying no to 75% of it because I've already filled up my calendar with 7,000 other things. So I'm learning too, this is all a process. I think I am a type A personality, so that's also probably why I don't feel like I can ever burn out, but it does happen. And to avoid that, scheduling yourself in advance, kind of having some clear goals. One of the other things that I've been telling the podcasters that are joining the network is have a target list of 10 things, either 10 episodes that you're going to have beforehand, even if you don't record them right as you start, or 10 of the top people that you want on your podcast. And obviously make sure that it's something that's related or semi-related to the topic, or if not, then how can you utilize that person's reach or network to build your podcast as well, as long as you're still staying on target with what the purpose of the topic, the podcast is. And it's been working. Like I've seen, it's so crazy to think that this all started literally October, so less than a year ago.
Yeah.
And I've already been able to incubate 5 or 6 different podcasts, helping people really understand and kind of get a little bit more targeted on their podcast and the way that it's going. So
that's amazing. You mentioned something at the beginning of your story too. It's hey, I just dove in, right? And this is not your full-time and yet, right? Yet, I think.
Not yet. No, yeah.
But you were you took action. You took action right off and a lot of people freeze because of whatever they imagine the challenge can be. So whatever that, scenario that they see at the very beginning might be daunting, and then they're they go to the what if scenarios, right? The whip. We talked about that. The whip, and then they stop, they freeze, right? So I found fascinating that you jumped in, started executing relentlessly, right? One step after another, without the fear that, okay, well, if it doesn't go the right way, that's okay. It's a learning opportunity. And then from there, you just decided to help other people, and now you have an amazing network and providing a lot of value on a very niche type of scenario, right? With Latinas. Right? Yeah. Which is insane. Amazing. I just wanted to tell the audience, and again, this show is all about pushing the people into taking action. And sometimes we bring awesome guests that have been playing the game for years. And sometimes we also bring awesome guests that have been playing this game for not a long time, but you are a living example of that taking action.
What they have in common is that they're all action takers,
exactly.
right? And that's important. And you mentioned a few points that I really like. For example, you said you're still learning, right? And I think people need to understand that is you cannot go into it pretending, or you cannot wait to know everything to get started, because that's not going to happen. Joe Rogan, he still is learning, right? Everybody constantly. So, but I think most people that go into podcasting, I think they know that already. So I think this message is for those that might be dabbling a little bit in, should I share it? Those people that are looking for perfectionism. And I was one of them, and that stopped me for 3 years, right? I knew I knew it, that I had to publish. I would sit down in front of my computer and see all these awesome people publishing, saying, hey, if you want a business online, you need to publish. And I was like, yes, I know I do, but I'm not ready yet because it's not perfect. And 3 years later, I was like, you know what? It's enough. Enough is enough. It's time to take action, imperfect action, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And the other point is, you said every time you say yes, you should be saying no to a lot of things, right?
Right.
And it's funny that you mentioned that, because in our last episode, we had Jorge Vasquez from Amplify My Impact, and he was actually talking about that opportunity cost, right? Like every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to something. And every time you say no to something, you're saying yes to something. So it is so important. Like we want to accomplish so much whenever we step into this game, right? Like, oh, we want to have the biggest guests in our podcast. We want to hit the biggest targets on viewers or listeners in our show, right? But what we need to understand is like, we need to manage ourselves as well, right? Like, so we can take the actions that are going to move us forward in the most beneficial way, to put it in a sense, right? And the other thing that I love, because you were talking about audience, and we love the topic of building audience. And you said some people start with an audience in mind, and some people just start, right? They just start and let the journey dictate who your audience is. And I love that, because a lot of people, again, they are so focused on knowing everything. Hey, I need to know who my audience is before I start speaking. It's like, it's okay if you don't. Right. Something that we say is like, the fact that you're sharing your message, that's going to help you pretty much start filtering the message. Kind of like getting to know yourself, getting to know who you're actually helping, is helping you determine, okay, I want to work with these people and I don't want to work with those other people, right? So I think that's super, super important. Would you elaborate a little bit more on that side of building the audience? I'm super interested.
Yeah. So, for me, I think I agree with you 100%. Like even, I guess I hate to always use him as an example, but even Joe Rogan didn't know who his audience was going to be 15 years ago. Now, we love to think that he's an overnight sensation, but it took him 15 years. Yep. And rambling 15 years. His podcasts are 3 hours long. So that just proves to you that there's no real... there's no real magic potion for this, right? Like everybody's going to build an audience and however it works best for you. And that's one of the things that, I always go about talking to people. It's like, what is the purpose? If you're going to have a purpose for this podcast, is it business related or is it something that's personal? Then that's two different things. And you kind of already have an audience when it comes down to something personal, when it comes down to business. But yeah, I mean, those audiences continue to grow and sometimes you'll drop off. Like we have had one podcaster who started her podcast completely in Spanish and then changed it to, well, it was English and then she went completely Spanish and now she came back and it's like bilingual. And in that process, she's gained listeners, she's lost listeners, but now she finally found her sweet spot. And it took her 5 years to get there. So, it really is a process. And that for her was her marketing sales funnel, right, for her podcast. Mine's a personal one. My podcast is more about women's empowerment, but I think it's really just the core of my life is about empowering women, giving back to my community, and also making sure that in the spaces in which I'm better educated than others, that I'm also able to share the wealth of knowledge that I have and for everybody else that I connect with. I think that personally, it's a huge responsibility that people don't necessarily ever want to take on. But in order for others to grow to a certain level and you have that knowledge and you don't want to share it, you're kind of just being selfish.
Yeah, I think it comes down to, thank you. Because I think it comes down to your own mission, right? Like what's the value that you want to provide, not just to your audience but to the world, right? Because you literally, this is an avenue that everybody in the world that has an app or a phone can really access, right? And we've seen it. We have people in Europe, Africa, everywhere, Australia that have listened to the show, which is great. And you're like, wow, when in the world am I ever gonna like reach so far? So to stick to it, like your podcaster, right? 5 years took her to find that message, testing it, but she has to be so passionate about what she's sharing that to continue. So we talk a lot about enjoying the process on not just creating the content, but enjoying the process of sharing that information. What you're passionate about? And I think you nailed it. And then because without that, I highly doubt that anybody can stick to it. The reason we do this as an interview is because we love creating the relationships that we're doing through the show. And it's a lot of fun. So that's why we keep doing it, right? And that provides us a platform to share value from us and from other people that come into the show, even better. So what advice, I guess, would you give to somebody that's starting today, let's say on the podcasting platforms, and they might be looking at that hill that's super, super steep?
I guess I get asked this question so frequently now, right? It's really just hit record. Just upload it. The first episode's going to suck. You're not going to be a professional unless you've worked for NPR for years, you guys. Like, stop worrying about this imposter syndrome and the perfectionism, because it's not going to be perfect.
Yep.
We can literally go back to listen to This American Life, and I'm pretty sure we'll find a flaw or a word that was left in or an or something. But along the way, that person had to actually learn their skill and perfect it. And podcasting might not even be your thing. Yeah. So I try to as much as it would be best for me to produce people's podcasts from start to finish, which I can do because we do have a full production arm to the network now.
Nice.
Yeah.
It would not be in the best service to know that somebody who's iffy and isn't 100% sure about this, for them to spend that much of an investment without actually knowing if they're comfortable enough to do that is not something I would want to personally advise people to do. I want you to feel comfortable with what you do. And the only way you're going to get comfortable with it is doing it. So my number one thing is telling people, you got to hit record. You can do all the planning that you want in the world. You can do everything you want in the world, but without hitting record, you have not started a podcast. You do not have a podcast. You have nothing.
I love it.
You have planning, and that's great, and it could take you 3-4 years to launch. Then there's nothing wrong with that, right? But it's also like, you really don't understand until you start doing it yourself.
Yeah. I love the fact that you told that story about saying no to people that they don't even know if this is what they want, right? Because and again, we've covered this topic plenty of times in the podcast, but it's a lot of people will be like, oh, it's a quick buck. Why not, right? Let's say yes. But so I love your integrity. Not only that, because you're working with people that that's what they want. They're passionate about it, right? And I think that's an important message for people to understand, that is like, hey, like, it's okay to say no to some monetary, opportunities that might come your way, but I wouldn't even call them opportunities at that point, right? Because it's not, if it's not beneficial for both parties, I don't think, honestly, you should go into it, right? And before this, there were some really good topics that I really like, right? I mean, you talk about sharing the knowledge, right? And my brother talk about kind of like sharing that message across the world. And I love just this reference, say it's 1960 and somebody wants to have their own business, right? It was it was not impossible, but it was very difficult to go beyond your town, pretty much, right? Because like only big corporations were the only ones that had the power and the mediums to communicate their message in a broad way, right? I mean, I think 1960s when the first TV ad came out, something like that. So only companies with big, like, deep pockets were the ones able to advertise and all that. And now we just have this, what we're doing right now. It's so easy for anybody to just put themselves out there and share their message and impact people, right? And a lot of people, the thing is, I think most of us like to compare ourselves to somebody else, right? So we are like, hey, I'm starting, but I'm not having the impact that someone that has been 5 years in the game or 15 years in the game is having, right? And that just like eats up our motivation, and then we don't want to keep going. But if you look at it like, okay, imagine yourself in a room with 3 people, right? And imagine that you change those 3 people's life. That's a big deal, right? If you're in the same room and you're like, people get stressed out for getting 10 views on their show, right? Or 10 listens. It's like, dude, imagine speaking in the same room in person to 10 people. It's like, dude, I'll be getting sweaty armpits at that point. I'll be so nervous, right?
If you're listening, and go watch a video, because he does have sweaty armpits right now.
Oh my God.
I know. Look, I'm good. But it actually looks like I got sweaty armpits.
Rita, I love that message, Fonzie. And it goes to, I think it's a perfect transition for these questions. What are some of the biggest challenges that you've seen inside of yourself when you decided to take on this journey? And then what are some of the challenges that you see the people in your network and how have you guys been able to go over that?
Bro, you read my mind. Wait, Rita, before you answer.
It's like we're brothers.
It is. It looks like it, yeah. I just want to add, like you said, and this was the topic about sharing the knowledge. I absolutely love all that. I think, yes, indeed, you need to be willing to give to others. But, and this is going to sound a little bit selfish, but one of my favorite reasons of podcasting and publishing is the effect that I've seen in the two of us, like the change, the mindset, everything. So now, that being said, I think it's a good segue to answer my brother's question.
Yes, thank you.
I love that. So I think for me, it was fear. Like there's always every day, there's always a fear, always. And I think it's, the fear of failure. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I'm taking on a massive elephant. It's not like a little... It's not a little task, but how do you eat an elephant? Right, one bite at a time. And I want to be the person who's always like able to take on everything and do everything. And the thing is that, yeah, you can do everything, but figuring out how to utilize your best skill sets and using what you have to your advantage versus trying to expand yourself out of what you already have.
Yeah.
I sit here sometimes and I'm like, you know what? I don't have the best of this, or I don't have that, or I don't have this. And then I realize like I've been able to connect with 5,000 women all over the world. And these women of that, maybe 10% of them are all podcasters that we have actual access to. And of those, 48 podcasters have subscribed to our directory. And of those, 14 people believe in this vision, so much so that they're willing to come on even when things aren't perfect. And I think that alone is a good, an example of really believing in what you're doing. And you know what? To sit here and say that people believe every single thing that they do is going to be successful, or every single thing that you try is going to be 100%, it's going to be a success. It's not. And if you go into it and know that it's not, that failure or that drop is not as bad as it would be if you just believe that nothing's ever going to go wrong and everything goes perfect. And, when you have a chance to really believe, like, you know what, these things could potentially go wrong, but here's the thing. I'm going at it the best I can. I'm going at it with the resources that I have, and the right people will connect with you. And as soon as I started to like consider that mindset and really just like focus on that and utilizing what I had, the doors kicked open for me.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, here comes the avalanche. But at the same time, it was like, had I not have been on the right track, had I not have wanted to connect to everybody authentically, had I not have kept everybody's best interest in mind, 14 people wouldn't want to be on this network with us. And that is with zero marketing, by the way.
Yeah. I love that. It's what we talked about earlier, the hourglass effect, right? It's like you have a massive connection with 5,000 people, and then you end up having 14. A lot of people might see that maybe as a not very positive thing, but guess what? Those 10, 14 people that are taking action are impacting so many others, and then it's just an effect that continues to multiply here and there. So for those listening, if you have 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever audience you have, let that be a force strong enough for you to keep going.
Yeah. And you touch again, cool topics. Let me tell you, one of those, fear. I love that conversation of fear, right? I mean, like all my life, I think I've been petrified by fear, It's like, and I think I haven't said this in the podcast yet, but I feel like I've operated most of my life in a place of being pretty confident in a comfort zone, right? I mean, grew up playing soccer my whole life. Yes, I mean, taking a little bit of risk, moving here and there, playing in other teams, but it was always within the comfort zone of soccer. And something that I learned is that fear is actually, and I mean, okay, there's some fear that is you're not gonna go and like run towards a bear. No, don't do that. But there's some fear that you never know
unless you're Canadian.
Well,
but
depends on who you are.
Yeah, depends on who you are, I guess. If you're Bear Grylls, cool, go and do it. But but I mean, fear is it's an indicator that you're actually moving in the right way outside of your comfort zone. pursuing growth. So I think once people realize that it's easier to train yourself, fear's not going to go away. So it's easier to train yourself to take action regardless of any type of fear that you're feeling, right? And then you said, kind of like people see, oh, I have to do so many things, right? It is super important to focus, right? So you have fear, see your outcome that you want, and then focus on the resources that you already have. And that's going to take you to the next level. And it wasn't until we actually focus on one offer, right? We used to be all over the place trying to offer businesses so many different services. And it wasn't until we actually focus on one solution to one problem that we started moving forward. And it's amazing. So I really want people to take this away from today's podcast. That is like, sit down, write down what are your current skills, you know, what one problem are you solving, and what is the one, like, how can you do it consistently, and just focus your full effort on doing that over and over again. Not only that, I actually read this quote today. It's pretty funny. He said, the person that fails the most will be the smartest person in the room. And I'm
really great at failing, so that's awesome.
There you go. That's right. And I want to add a little bit, like, not only the person that fails the most, but the person that fails the most and then reflects on it, right? Because a lot of people just think that by failing, they're going to accomplish something. And they might move forward. But if you sit down and then reflect on that failure and see, how can I learn? Ask yourself, you know, why this one thing didn't work out this time? How can I, you know, improve it a little bit, make it a little bit different to move forward?
Rita, what's your system? You just said like, I'm the master failure, right? And that's totally okay. We totally dig it, because we're like that. We're like, oh my God, like, how can I fail faster, you know, so I can learn faster?
Right.
What's your process? Because a lot of people are like, okay, you know, I'm in peace with failing, but now I don't know what to do after failure. Like, it's gonna be a train wreck. So what's your process? What can you say to people like, okay, how can you get up from that failure and move forward?
Yeah, I think it's really simple. As difficult as it might sound, going at it with the mindset of knowing that you're going to fail. And I don't mean this in like because trust me, like, I believe, like I said, when I say I believe in mindset, mindset is everything. Mindset is everything, but people believe that mindset has to be 100% focused on, I am X at 1,000%. Right? That would be great. Not everybody starts at that level. So if you're starting from ground zero, which I've just always stayed curious, and that's what really has fueled my my growth as a person in general. It's just something, I never knew this before, but apparently my friends tell me all the time that, like, not everyone in the world is like me, and I think that I don't understand why, because I'm not going to sit here and tell you that failure doesn't hurt, right? It sucks. I mean, you can fail at relationships, you can fail at career choices, which I didn't really have direction when I was younger in deciding exactly what I wanted. But I think it was the purpose of all of this to begin with, right? Like, there was a reason for all of these things to happen. So if you can think that, okay, like, this wasn't a success, but it was supposed to happen because it was going to teach me something. And what did I learn from this? And take one thing. Don't like ruminate on stuff. Don't sit there and it's not about you. It really, truly, it really is not about you, right? Like, you can sit here and plan everything out. Perfect example is, you know, we went through this whole entire pandemic. So my outside job, I'm actually in sales, medical sales, but, you know, we were doing great. I was projected to do one of my best years, period. And this pandemic happened, and like, nobody wants to go to do procedures or anything that's not your most basic thing. And every single person now thinks they have coronavirus. And so it's like, oh man, you know, I'd already planned out everything for the year and all this stuff. But, you know, like I said, you can sit here and plan everything out to the T. And you could still get it wrong. So why not just prepare yourself to be flexible? Plan yourself out. And this is also me too. Like, I plan about 75% of things. And 25% is for that ability to be flexible. Because, look, you know, we have the ability to create. This is a space in which I'm creating from the ground up. So I don't want it to be so pigeonholed and so in a box that I don't give people the ability to give me some feedback, so I can continue to provide the audience and also the podcasters what they want, right? So I have to remain somewhat flexible. There is a lot of legal work that needs to be done in general. I mean, that's just protection for everybody. But at the same time, there is flexibility on the back end as to say, all right, maybe this podcaster wants something a little bit different. Is there something that makes them unique that can help us create some sort of a negotiation opportunity there for both of us, right? Not always being 100% super rigid and understanding that if the plan doesn't work out the way it's supposed to, it's okay because that's the way it was supposed to work out in the first place.
In our last episode, we talked a lot about relationship marketing, and you're creating a community, right? And with a community comes relationships.
Correct.
How do you find those people, right, that want to be in your community? Because a lot of people are like out there like, hey, I want a group of support. I want a group that understand, that speaks my same language. We've lived it in many events, right? I think the reason that we like synced very well with you guys at that event, which was a random meetup that we posted on social media. Hey guys, by the way, if you're gonna chat, we'll be out here. And then
I think she sensed.
Did y'all not know we had the meetup up there?
The what?
We had just had an unofficial meetup up there anyway. I didn't know you guys didn't know that. Oh, that's cute.
We're like at that.
We had our own meetup, and then you guys came on, and that's where we both kind of joined.
I think the karaoke energy brought us together.
So
that's what I think.
A lot of people, but it felt very organic, right? And sometimes people, and we have 16 minutes left here. So, but a lot of people want to force that community. A lot of people want to go out and kind of grab, you need to be part of this community, and you need to be part of this community, right? How, I feel like it cannot be that way, right? And we talked about relationships, you cannot force relationships. So now you're building this community. How do you go about it? How do you connect people at that level?
Well, I think one of the biggest things for us in general as Latinas, and why I think everybody has organically just kind of connected to us without really doing any kind of hardcore marketing, is because there's a need for connectivity. We're all so different. We keep getting lumped into different places in this country, and it's, sometimes people just need to find a reflection of what they look like in the industries in which they're working in. And I think that that's one of the truest reasons why this has been so successful and why it continues to grow on its own, is because with the climate of the country in general, I think everybody just wants to find some sort of a space where they look like someone else around them, or they can relate to their ideas. Because when they go back to work, 9 times out of 10, there isn't anybody that looks like you, that talks like you, or that has that same relation. And so for me, the most important thing and the number one core value that we have is comunidad, because if we don't start there, then we don't have anything. And most of these women actually already connect to their own communities as well. And they've been starting to talk about all of the stuff that they see on social media. I mean, Instagram has literally blown up on its own. We went from 0 to 3,000 in less than 4 months. So that's awesome. And every day now it's 100 people that are adding themselves. And I'm like, okay, we clearly are doing something right. And it's really just making sure that the talent that we see, we're also giving that back. Like I said, if I know that I have something that you don't have, then I might as well share it with you. So our directory is always going to remain free for everybody. So if anybody wants to go on latinapodcasters.com, you can click the link of podcasts, and you'll see all the podcasters that have added themselves to the directory.
Awesome.
And the membership for the network is on there as well. It is open to everyone. We just wanted to start off with a specific founding member number. And like I said, we sent out one email to 40 people. And of those 40, 14 were like, yeah, we're going to do this. Because we have not talked about this yet with anybody else other than them, because they were the original ones who had already bought into the directory. So that will continue to be a part of who we are, to continue to share the wealth and the knowledge of community, because like I said, it's the number one thing. But after that, it's if the audience didn't necessarily believe that it was something that was necessary. Sorry, you guys. Getting a little malfunctioning over here. But if the audience didn't believe that it was something that was necessary and important, then I probably wouldn't have put that much energy into it. But it happened organically, and it happened naturally, and it happened the way it was supposed to. So
no, I love it. I love that whole emphasis on community, right? And So I actually started doing this thing last week called Daily Original Thoughts, right?
Yeah.
Shout out to Holly Flick. And so I've been failing to publish them. I'm not gonna lie. I said I was gonna publish them daily.
It's okay. Failing fast and moving
No,
forward.
It's quarterly now.
I've been doing them. I
monthly.
actually write them. I have like this little handbook that I keep right next to me all day long, and then I just write stuff in there. And I have wrote my daily OTs. I just haven't published them, right? But I published this one right now. I have it here, and it says, "Building a business is just a systematic way of building relationships." Mm-hmm. And I think that just like the community aspect that you talk about, right? Building those relationships is just so key for people to understand, because a lot of us feel like business. I feel like a lot of people think business is about volume, about trying to get as many customers, as many people as you can, right? But the people that you can help the fastest and in the best possible way are the people that are experiencing what you already experienced in your journey once, right? And there's a limited way of people that are experiencing that.
Yeah.
So that's where the systematic part comes, and that's what we talked before, kind of like building those audiences, right? You said you started going to these groups. You knew where the people that you wanted to talk to that probably would relate with your message, where they were hanging out, and you started sharing your message with them. So
Yeah.
I think is great, the community aspect. Thank you.
Yeah, we love every second of this conversation.
We love Rita. Yeah.
Oh, I love you too, guys. I talk about y'all all the time. I'm like, they're the best brothers and sisters.
And we need to keep up, because and thank God we got you on the show right now, because God knows like where you're gonna be like in a month, and then it's gonna be like impossible to chat with you because of the massive network that you're gonna build. With that being said, like our time is running out, and dang it, we're gonna have to do like part 2 and 3 later. So I'm committing you today for those episodes in the future. So then there's no way that you say no.
I'll be back, guys. I'll be back.
Awesome.
Of
All
course.
right.
I mean,
You
you
heard
guys
it.
have been so supportive since I met you, and
Let's go.
that's the most important thing to me, and I think that reflects on why everybody connects to what we're doing, what this idea is. And like you said, people can build at a higher quantity or faster than I can, and that's totally okay. But what they're not going to be able to do is replicate the community aspect that we were able to do. So that's the one thing that I'm like, yeah. Good luck.
Yeah.
I'm like, good luck.
Exactly.
This was not easy.
So to wrap things up, I think we talked about the action point a little earlier in the episode, where it's like hit record, and I loved it because like that's number one thing that people.
Wait, sorry. Before we go to the action point,
No, we're actually not gonna go to the action point because we already did it.
okay.
Thank you.
You go. And then
Sorry,
then
guys.
So for those listening, like today, the memory card has a very limited amount of time, so that's why we need to keep it like under the hour. That's the real
okay,
reason,
gotcha.
and I'm gonna be completely transparent. But that's okay because Rita's coming a second time again, and we're not going to continue this conversation.
it was all on
It
purpose.
was all on purpose. So
Nothing's by accident. Remember
nothing
that.
by accident. So the question that I really want to ask you is like, again, we talked about motivating, like pushing people into taking action, basically. So where will you be today if you did not publish?
I don't even want to think about it. My life has changed so drastically over the last 12 months that going back to that person a year ago doesn't even make sense. Some people will continue their journeys on podcasting. I listen to and consume over 25 podcasts, if not more, a week, because I want to remain current and understand what quote unquote standard is. But I also want people to know that standard isn't always what is there. It is what is created. And to me, my life would be boring.
No karaoke.
No karaoke.
No karaoke. No, I think I've been on like over 40 podcasts already in less than 2
Amazing.
months. I mean, and I still have my own podcast, which I'm like, oh my God, I miss my podcast. Like I miss doing it as frequently as I was. But what's crazy is like now the people that are connecting to the podcast and those that are coming on to the podcast are just like it's just like it's blown up in the sense of just like the people that want to connect to the podcast. And that's insane because I barely do any marketing of my podcast anymore.
Love it.
because I don't want that to be the primary focus. It's not necessarily about me. It's about, promoting the network and everybody who connects to us. But my podcast isn't going away because I absolutely love what I do. So even if I have to do it once a month, I'm going to do it.
And Fancy, just for ease of mind, we can ask your question on Facebook Live. So if you're listening, go to the video and we'll do Facebook Live. So where can he wants to keep going so bad, but we're gonna actually do it on Facebook Live.
Yeah, we'll do it on Facebook Live.
Where can people find you, Rita?
Absolutely. So you can go to latinapodcasters.com to check out the directory. If you want to connect with me on social media, which I think is like one of the most amazing marketing tools ever out there, you can find me on Instagram at Rita E. Bautista, Bautista. You can follow my podcast at Empowerment and All That, and Latina Podcasters at Latina Podcasters on Instagram, and every single social media platform, period, you're going to find us at Latina Podcasters. Except for Twitter, we're at Latina Pod Network, NTW.
Awesome. Well, there you go, guys. Heard it. Go, please check him out. If you're a Latina and you podcast, you gotta go do like what Rita is doing because it's amazing. I'm so sad we don't have wigs for us. It's okay.
You never know. Who knows what the future holds? It might end up. We might end up. We're
expanding.
Exactly.
Count us in if you decide to open, the male side of things.
The Latino one.
You never know. You never know what the future can hold. And I'm no longer saying like, oh, that's not a thing. I'm like, oh, you know what? Life always tells you. You say one thing and then.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Things evolve and move forward. Well, with that being said, Rita, thank you so much. We appreciate you for being on the show. Don't leave yet because we have a little bit of a prologue after on Facebook Live.
And my question.
And Fonzie's question. Guys, if you're listening, thank you so much for tuning in. And with that being said, please go ahead and subscribe. Smash that subscribe button. Make sure that all the episodes fall in your phone in there, and follow us on social media.
That's right, guys. And if you found this episode impactful, which I am sure you did, don't forget to share it and leave a 5-star review. See ya.
Ciao.